was looking through my old videos, and I realized that my videos on the ontological argument were, to put it nicely, not very good. What I've done is, I've addressed the arguments again. This video is going to be on the first two formulations of the ontological argument. I'm going to show you why the arguments are wrong, and not just give you a counterexample. So, enjoy, and, well, enjoy my slightly new medium.
So this is Descartes' revised ontological argument, and it goes a bit like this. A perfect being, for which you should read God, has all perfections. Necessary existence, i.e. being uncaused, is a perfection. Sorry, being uncaused and existing is a perfection. So a perfect being has necessary existence. This follows from the first two. Whatever has necessary existence exists. This follows from the definition of necessary existence. So a perfect being exists. We obviously don't like this argument very much, but it's quite hard on first glance to put your finger on what actually is wrong with it. So what we're going to do to demonstrate that this argument is invalid to begin with is we're going to take the same structure and apply it to something we know can't exist. So here we go. A new square is something that can't exist, and we're going to define a new square as a round square that necessarily exists. Now we know if the argument proves a new square to exist, it can't be right, because something can't be round and a square, because then it would have corners and not have corners. So we know that's a contradiction in terms. This is the new square argument, and it goes like this. A new square has all new squaric properties. Necessary existence is a new squaric property. It has necessary existence. Whatever's necessary existence exists, so a new square exists. We know that conclusion is false, because a new square can't exist, by definition. So what actually is wrong with this argument? Well, what's actually wrong with it is that the first premise is ambiguous. We're going to go back to the perfect being argument, and let's look at the premise. A perfect being has all perfections. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it could actually mean one of two things. It could either mean anything that is a perfect being has all perfections, or it could mean there is a perfect being that has all perfections. And what the ontological argument relies on is a confusion of these two meanings. Let's look at the first one for a second. Note that that sentence could be true even if there's nothing in existence that is a perfect being. And the second formulation of it already assumes that there is a perfect being in existence. I'll demonstrate how this works. What we're going to do first is we're going to take each formulation and apply it to the argument and show how the structure can be valid but meaningless. So here we go. Anything that is a perfect being has all perfections. Necessary existence is a perfection. So whatever has necessary existence exists. So anything that is a perfect being exists. This argument still doesn't demonstrate that there is such a thing as a perfect being. All it says is, if there is something that is a perfect being, then that thing exists. That's trivial. It doesn't actually make any headway on the ontological argument in proving that a perfect being actually exists. Let's look at the other formulation now. This is the question-begging formulation. There is a perfect being that has all perfections. We follow the argument through once again. And what we do is we get a conclusion that's exactly the same as the initial premise. And it's interesting to note that this formulation can actually be shortened to there is a perfect being that has all perfections, so there is a perfect being. The argument once again is trivial, and it doesn't actually prove that there's a perfect being, because its premise already assumes that it's a perfect being. There's nothing to tell us that the first premise is true or false. This is what the ontological argument actually does. It tries to use the first formulation of the premise as the first meaning, and the second formulation as the latter. And we can see that this argument is now clearly invalid. Anything that is a perfect being has all perfections. Necessary existence is a perfection, so a perfect being has necessary existence. Whatever has necessary existence exists. So there is a perfect being that exists. That conclusion does not follow from the argument at all. The ontological argument is incorrect simply because it uses an ambiguous premise. Descartes is thoroughly refuted.